Hello. Welcome to this week's Private Funds Update. I'm Sandra from SmartEsq. Here's what I learned this week. Let's start with a Supreme Court case that could reshape investment funds. On December 10th, the court heard arguments in FS Credit Opportunities versus Saba Capital. The central question: can private investors sue to cancel fund contracts that violate federal law, or is enforcement solely the SEC's job? Here's the backstory. Activist investor Saba Capital challenged certain bylaws adopted by Maryland closed-end funds, arguing they violated the Investment Company Act. The Second Circuit said investors can bring these lawsuits. But other federal courts have disagreed, saying only the SEC can enforce these rules. So what's at stake? If the Supreme Court sides with Saba, we could see investors challenging all sorts of fund contracts, management agreements, credit facilities, you name it. Investors would gain significant power to police fund operations directly through the courts. But if the court reverses, investors would largely need to convince the SEC to take action rather than suing themselves. The decision could either open the floodgates to private enforcement or firmly close the courthouse doors. Either way, it's a major moment for the fund industry. Turning to the SEC, a sharp ideological divide has emerged regarding corporate governance and AI regulation. The SEC's Investor Advisory Committee recently recommended prescriptive guidelines for AI disclosures, including requiring issuers to define artificial intelligence and disclose specific board oversight mechanisms. However, SEC Chair Paul Atkins and Commissioner Peirce have pushed back firmly. Chair Atkins argued against adopting new rules for every new thing, asserting that existing principles-based materiality standards are sufficient to inform investors. He emphasized that the SEC's role is not to nudge corporate behavior or define the limits of technology. This reflects a broader deregulatory shift. Chair Atkins and Commissioner Peirce continue to advocate for a regulatory framework that prioritizes the attractiveness of U.S. public markets and resists prescriptive mandates. With Republicans set to hold 3-0 partisan control over the 5-member commission in January, the SEC's deregulatory path appears set for months to come. Now let's talk about some good news for venture capital. The House just unanimously passed the Atkins Act. That's the Improving Capital Allocation for Newcomers Act. Here's what it does. Right now, small VC funds can only raise up to $10 million from 250 investors before they have to register with the SEC as an investment company, which is costly and burdensome. The Atkins Act dramatically increases those limits to $50 million and 500 investors. This is huge for emerging fund managers. They can now raise 5 times more capital and bring in twice as many investors without triggering heavy regulatory requirements. That means more flexibility to build their businesses and back early-stage startups. There's also a built-in review mechanism. After 5 years, the SEC will study how well this is working, particularly for increasing capital access and founder diversity. If the results look good, the SEC could raise the limits even higher, potentially $100 million and 750 investors. The bill now heads to the Senate Banking Committee. If it passes there, it could reshape the landscape for emerging VC managers. Lastly, we have the first major policy address from Brian Daly, the new director of the Division of Investment Management. Speaking to the ABA on December 2nd, Director Daly outlined a 4-year agenda focused on deregulation, modernization, democratization, and AI. Daly emphasized a shift away from prescriptive rulemaking, explicitly stating that the division will not use examinations to establish de facto substantive limits. Most notably with regards to AI integration, Daly positioned the SEC as an innovation commission, envisioning a future where AI agents replace dense PDF disclosures to create interactive investor experiences. He invited the industry to propose necessary relief to make this happen, signaling an open-door policy for tech-forward compliance solutions. That's it for this week. You can learn more about these topics from me on the SmartEsq platform. If you are curious about the services we offer, please visit www.smartesq.io.